So on Sunday, we are going to potentially learn of some new Hall of Famers. It is not easy to crack the list from the Veterans Committee into the contemporary era. And the list that is being voted on is stacked and has some controversy to it as well, right? Bonds and Clemens are on there, but then you also have Don Mattingly, who's had many cracks at it and hasn't been voted in by both the writers or the Veterans Committee. Dale Murphy is on there. Jeff Kent is on there. I'll just personally throw my opinion in here because Kent was like my prime era of watching ball as a kid or a little bit older. And I thought Jeff Kent was a Hall of Famer. Gary Sheffield too, Carlos Delgado, Fernando Valenzuela. This is a really good list. And then there was 16 on the committee that actually does the voting here. And what they do is they all chit chat Todd Father. So it's not just like you drop in, you go behind the curtain and you punch in your vote. They have hours long conversations first, and then everyone votes. Okay. So kind of like, I don't know, Survivor, if anyone's checked that show out. So you've got Fergie Jenkins, Jim Kaat, Juan Marichal, Tony Perez, Ozzie Smith, Alan Trammell, Robin Yount on the voting committee, along with executive Mark Attanasio, who is the owner of the Brewers, Doug Melvin, former GM, Arte Moreno, owner of the Angels, Kim Ng, who's been a longtime executive in the game, Tony Regans, Terry Ryan, historian Steve Hurt, and Jason Stark is also part of this group too and wrote about it, that he's not just going to be an observer, he's going to be a voter. Anyway, thoughts on all of this, the process, and then if you think any of these guys will make it and how it will go. Todd Father, what do you think?
This is very, very interesting. But not only the group of players that it might get voted into the Hall of Fame, but the committee. Holy cow, man! My question, Scott, first off, is can they vote all these guys in if they wanted to, or they could vote? No. How many can you vote for to get in?
So you can vote for three people. Three people, and to get in, only three. And to get in, you need 12 out of 16 votes. You need 75%. So it is really challenging because I could see there being a lot of 3 votes here, 4 votes there, 9 votes there. The only thing that I think will help curb that is I have to imagine, and I'll bring in KP for this too. KP, I have to imagine that if you get a room of all of these baseball minds together and they chit chat and everybody presents their case, it'll start to sway people because everybody can't just put a different name down. Nobody will get in there. So you might be able to say, hey, I feel like this guy deserves it. You start to hear that more and more. Then maybe some person that was on the fence is like, yeah, I'm going to vote for Dale Murphy too.
Yeah. I agree.
Not hearing you.
I mean, I think, I think when you get in a room full of people, you could kind of persuade votes like, okay, these are the 3 to 5 guys that we think deserve to get in. Now go make your vote. But my question to you also, because I'm not as familiar with this too, is this a one and done situation when they're on this kind of contemporary era election ballot?
No.
Is it one and done, or they can continue to stay on it?
They can stay on. Also, I forgot one name, Tyler Kepner, who we love too, who's been on. So it's Kepner and Jason Stark, who are great historians and writers. But no, because I think Don Mattingly, at least I want to say 3, if not 4 times now, has had a crack at the Veterans Committee. Now he's continuing to build his case, even though it doesn't feel that way, because it wasn't just as a player. They acknowledge anything that you've done in the baseball world. And it's not like he's been a World Series winning manager or something like that, but he's been in the game for a long time. He's made an impact. So just throwing that out there. Don Mattingly and Dale Murphy is who Ken wrote about, and Todd Father. Ken, I would not say is a super small hall, but he's definitely not a big hall voter, right? I would say kind of in the middle and a little more towards small, if I had to guess. But he is starting to turn because he said there's just not that many volume guys that are superstar legends anymore. So it leads him to make a vote for Chase Utley. Ken pointed out in his article how Buster Posey has about 1,500 hits, and he's probably going to get in likely as a first balloter. And we haven't seen that since Ralph Kiner in the 70s. Nobody else has even been under 2,000 hits. So the numbers are changing. It's not just like, 500 homers and 3,000 hits and forget 300 wins. I mean, can we get 200 wins or less? So Ken's point was maybe we should reconsider Don Mattingly, whose peak was more like 6 years, or Dale Murphy, who I think had about a 10-year peak. I think Dale Murphy should be in. I mean, like I mentioned, I'm in on Kent, Sheffield. If Sheffield's got a unique story that he tells and he's very adamant about, but with the PED situation that occurred with him. So, and I encourage you to read that, or we've talked about it on the show with him. But anyway, this one's fascinating to me. I do see where Ken is going, though, on giving more love to guys that don't have the volume that would have stacked up in the past. But I think we have to look at differently.
Yeah, and you hate to think of it like this, but you look, like I said before, you look at the names, like you see certain names, Jim Kaat, I mean, old school. What is he going to think about with the certain guys with the steroid era? Tony Perez, what a beast. Love him to death. He's got a great voice. He's going to be very opinionated on some things too as well, good and bad. Ozzie Smith, what an absolutely gem of a guy, but you don't know what these people are thinking. Me personally, I think Barry Bonds should get in the Hall of Fame, man. I've said it before. I've said it all the time. He is the greatest hitter to ever play in this game. And again, you guys brought it up a while ago. It was frowned upon when this was going on. So, man, it's just so hard. I think Don Mattingly should be in the Hall of Fame. The guy was so clutch. He didn't win a World Series. Okay, what are you going to do? I mean, Gary Sheffield, monster hitter. He was very, very good. I would find it hard to believe that they don't put 3 guys in here that deserve it. And do I think all of them? I think all of them have a really good shot and should get in. But, for me, first and foremost, I think Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame, man. I just personally think he was the greatest hitter to ever play this game in baseball.
And I will tell you this, I would say there's almost no chance that, and I'm not a debate on what you're talking about. I'm not trying to debate that right now. Almost no chance he gets voted in based on who is making votes, right? Like there's guy like Jim Kaat, no freaking chance he's voting in Bonds and Clemens based on the PED connections. Yeah, you're right. You never know. I just think that they're going to try and look at some other guys that have been around here for a while that are borderline, that are not connected to PEDs, like Murphy and Mattingly. Let me point this out too, KP. Cyrus tweeted this yesterday. Doesn't Jeff Kent have a better Hall of Fame case than Murphy and Mattingly, who I think should definitely get serious consideration? He's well ahead in the WAR numbers. He looks like he's got an edge on the slash line. The home run totals are similar to Murphy, well ahead of Mattingly. The weighted runs created plus, which is a very similar number to OPS plus, puts him at a very nice spot consistently in his career. He's won an MVP, 5-time All-Star. What am I missing on Jeff Kent? That people didn't love his defense? Oh, I'm sorry. He was a monster slugging second baseman and played. It's not like he was a disaster over there.
Oh, he also had the hardest job in baseball for a long time, hitting behind Barry Bonds. That should be something. But he wasn't a guy who was beloved by the media. He wasn't very available, didn't care to spend a lot of time with the media. I mean, that's a knock against him. But I want to steal kind of a quote that Ken dropped on us. It said, impact on the game, when talking about A-Rod and Bud Selig. Do not all these guys have an impact on the game? My challenge is, it feels like when you get to the Hall of Fame as a player, your kind of perspective changes. Like you're in this super elite group of players. But when you read off those list of names of guys that are on the committee and the guys that are trying to get elected, do not all of them sound like Hall of Famers to me? I'm personally not a numbers guy in terms of you need to have X amount of hits or home runs or innings pitched or wins or whatever the criteria is. I like to look at it from a player's perspective. If I play, and you can ask Todd, you can ask me about guys that we played against that maybe are currently still playing or just got done playing. A Hall of Famer when you see one. Did they dominate the era that they played in? Were they one of the best players in that era, whether it was for 5, 6, 8, 10, 15 years? There's no doubt in my mind when you talk about a guy like Buster Posey. He doesn't have the statistical numbers and the accomplishments, but was he one of the best players or the best player for the 6 years that he was on the field every single day? Without a doubt. So I've always kind of been a little bit bigger Hall guy. I don't think it should be for everyone, but if you go around a room and ask players, hey, you ask guys who played against Dale Murphy, was he the best player in the field almost every single time he stepped on the field? Absolutely. Same goes for Don Mattingly. Same goes for Gary Sheffield. I think a lot of these guys are very deserving. To Todd's point too, I'm a huge believer. I know all the noise and speculation and all the things around Barry Bonds, but when you talk about impact on the game, this guy's been retired for how long? And we're still talking about this guy as the greatest player to ever play. Maybe Shohei's kind of coming up on that eventually if his career continues to go the way he's going. But you talk about the most dominant baseball player of all time, it's Barry Bonds. It's a very easy answer, much like you would get in the NBA. If you ask someone, it's Michael Jordan. So there's some people that can make an argument for LeBron or Kobe and some other players, but if you're having that argument of best player and it comes down to three guys and he's not in the Hall of Fame, I think we're doing the Hall of Fame an injustice by not having him in there.